Hey, hope you're having a really great week so far. Welcome to today's video. I'm gonna try out something a little bit different today than my usual content. I believe that psychology in Australia is a very connected community where we like to help one another, so I do like to actively try and help students to the best of my abilities by answering questions. However, I am so time poor at the moment simply because I'm working and studying full time and I'm starting to get to crunch time with my studies where I just don't have much capacity to answer any questions. Funnily enough though, the bulk of queries that come into my inbox are from international students. So what I've done for today's video is I've gone through my email list, I've pulled up all of the questions, and basically today I'm gonna go through and answer all of them because I just haven't had the capacity to get back to people by email. So I'm sorry if I haven't gotten back to you if you've sent one through, and I hope that this video gives you some more context. I want to quickly say before we get into this, I'm really sorry if I mispronounce names. I'm gonna try my best. Okay, first up we've got some questions from Gania. She sent me a pretty long list of questions, but they're all really relevant and I think they're all quite helpful, so I'm gonna actually start off with her list. Okay, so her first question: as an international student, I'm curious to know if having publications is a prerequisite for securing admission to a psychology program at an Australian university. Okay, so I would say no, you don't have to have any of your research published before applying to a postgrad program in psychology. However, it would definitely help your application to stand out, especially if you're applying to a master's in clinical psychology. Okay, so her next question: in terms of relevant experience, I would like to understand what would be considered adequate from an applicant's home country when applying for admission to a psychology program in Australia. Again, that's a really great question. To stand out as a competitive applicant, it's great if you've got some work experience or even volunteer experience. Often students in Australia do this through counseling roles, especially like telephone counseling services. One of the most popular ones is called Lifeline. But again, I would say any kind of work that you've done volunteering or professionally that relates to helping people. Okay, so her next question: could you kindly provide some information on the minimum academic grades required for admission to a psychology program? I would like to ensure that my academic achievements align with the expectations of Australian universities. The main thing that I would say is that in Australia, psychology is extremely competitive. I get the feeling that it's really competitive in most countries. But what I know of Australia is that it's particularly competitive for postgraduate programs, especially clinical masters. The reason for this is that most postgrad programs in Australia only offer around 25 to 15 spots. And on top of that, some programs aren't open to international students. My advice would be, especially if you're trying to become a clinical psychologist, when you're doing your applications, apply to clinical masters, but also apply to professional masters, because the professional masters is a lot less competitive and it's only 1 year as opposed to 2 years of full-time study. It will still help you become a registered psychologist in Australia. And there are bridging masters that you can do down the track to get your clinical endorsement if you're really set on doing that. I realize though that I'm not actually answering Gania's question. I've gone on a bit of a tangent here, so if I come back to what she wants to know, what are the minimum academic grades required? Basically, try your very best to get a first class honours. At the very least, an upper second, but really try and aim for a first class honours. So basically that means aiming for high distinctions in your honours year, or whatever the equivalent is of your honours year in your country. Okay, that was a long answer, but I really wanted to give that question some attention. Okay, so Gania's next question: apart from clinical psychology, what other branches of psychology would you recommend exploring? I'm eager to broaden my knowledge and consider alternative specialization. Alright, so I've made a lot of other videos about this. I'll leave some links in the description somewhere on this page as well. But in a nutshell, clinical psychology is seen as like the best endorsement to try and get into, because basically our government helps fund psychology sessions and you can get a higher amount of funding from the government through our system called Medicare. Other endorsements in psychology don't offer this, and one of the reasons for this is because they're not all necessarily connected to therapeutic one-on-one work with a client. That being said, we do have other areas to specialize in. In total, I'm pretty sure we've got 9. However, unfortunately, we don't have many universities that offer programs to help you specialize in a different area other than clinical psychology. The main two are a clinical master's, which helps you become a clinical psychologist, and then that professional master's, which helps you become a general registered psychologist. However, all of that being said, there are some universities that have master's programs that focus on other areas of specialization, and the main two that I've noticed are organizational psychology, so that's working with businesses, or educational psychology, which is working with schools. These are awesome areas in my own opinion to check out. If you do a master's in one of these areas, it will help you become a registered psychologist, but you can also use that endorsement title, organizational psychologist or educational psychologist. I hope that answers your question, but I will leave some more resources in the description of this video, so definitely check out some of the other videos I've made about this. All right, let's go on to the next question. Considering my circumstances as an international student, I am keen to find reputable and affordable universities in Australia that offer psychology programs. Are there any specific institutions that you would suggest? Moreover, I would be grateful if you could shed some light on potential scholarship opportunities for international students pursuing psychology. All right, so off the top of my head, I'm really not too sure. However, I have put together a spreadsheet where I've documented all the different master's programs in Australia, and it includes some basic information such as the course cost and whether it's open or not to domestic or international students. If you're interested in this resource, I'm going to leave a link down below so that you can check it out. The other thing I'll say is that scholarship opportunities really vary at every single university, and I haven't really researched scholarship opportunities, so I can't give you a clear answer here, but I would definitely encourage you to check out the university's website and see what they have on offer for international students. All right, so I've come to Gania's last question. I'm curious about career prospects for provisional psychologists in Australia. Are there opportunities to work with firms and government ministries in the country? Yes, I can confirm the fantastic news about psychology in Australia at the moment is that it's a growth-based industry, meaning that there is a lot of scope to find work, especially as a provisional psychologist, because we actually have a recent shortage of provisional psychs. So you've got a really good chance of finding a job. I'm gonna leave another video down in the description about why psychology is an amazing profession to work in Australia, just to give you some more insight in case it's helpful. I've still got a lot more questions to go through. So what I'll do instead is I will make a part 2, but I do want to finish this video off by sharing something with you that's really important to take note of. If you come from a non-speaking English country, it's really important that you have competency in English in order to get into the field of psychology in Australia. The reason for this is kind of obvious. It's because psychology is a communications-based profession, so it's critical that you can speak English at a really high level. So for all international students watching where English isn't your first language, I hope that this information doesn't discourage you from still trying to apply or still trying to come to Australia and then get into psychology, because this field benefits from diversity, and there are a lot of people in Australia that need psychological help who don't necessarily speak English, or English isn't their first language. So if you do end up becoming a psychologist in Australia and you can speak a couple of different languages, this will definitely help you out as an amazing psychologist. All right, that's the last thing that I'll leave you with. I will upload part 2 very soon. I hope that you have an amazing week, and I'll talk to you in the next video. Bye!